Well, joining me now for our regular catch-up about the war on girls and women being waged by LGBTIQA plus political activists, aided and abetted by silent politicians, is Kirralie Smith from Binary. Kirralie, welcome.
Thanks, Lyle.
It's always great to have you, Kirralie, and there's just always so much to talk about. Confession for our viewers, you and I spoke about this a week or so ago, but we were going to drop this segment back to once a month. That was a terrible mistake, but as soon as the year got underway, I just realised we've got to keep talking every week. And so I'm grateful for your willingness to keep coming back week after week, because there's always some shocking thing that's happened that we must let people know about.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't stop. It's relentless. You know, I could do 10 blogs a day on this stuff and all that's coming out in the news, but we just have to be selective and highlight particular issues and keep our eyes focused on getting legislation changed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd commend people to go to the Binary blog. Each day there's generally fresh material there, breaking news, and this is such a big justice issue for girls and women in particular, and of course all children who are being brainwashed into this gender fluid ideology. Now, one of the biggest developments I think that's happened in this space probably in years, and this is a bombshell, not reported by our mainstream media or politicians here in Australia yet, but I've just spoken in the previous segment about WPATH, leaks from that organisation now exposing its advocacy for conducting life-altering surgery on children and prescribing them other dangerous chemicals and puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, of course. Now, this is a big story, isn't it, Kirralie?
Look, it's huge, Lyle, and it's not, you know, someone's opinion about WPATH. These are the files that WPATH themselves have written, emailed to one another, gone on the record and off the record, and it's really disturbing that they know that children cannot consent to these procedures. They know a lot of the time the parents can't even consent because of their, you know, poverty, illiteracy, and other complicating factors. They know the devastating harm that boys who go on puberty blockers will never have any sexual function, that children will be rendered sterile, that there'll be bone and brain development issues, there'll be cancers, there'll be, you know, the list just goes on and on and on. They are fully aware of it. They claim to be a medical association. They are not medical. They are not scientific. They don't conduct the studies. There's no rigorous checks and balances on these things, and yet they're held up as the, you know, guiding light and the shining example of transgender care, so much so that, you know, the Melbourne Gender Clinic and others in Australia call it the gold standard of care. And it's anything but. So now they have no excuses, Lyle. Not one politician in this country or gender clinic or Medico or anyone has any excuses. If they read this 242 report, they will be alarmed and disturbed, and they must change their ways immediately.
They must. Kirralie, I was shocked, and I guess this was already on the public record, but it's been highlighted through the leaks. But the president of WPATH is a guy called Marcy Bowers, a man who identifies as a woman. He's a surgeon. He's performed thousands of vaginoplasties, or plasties is probably the correct pronunciation, some on children. Most parents in Australia, I think, would be alarmed if they knew that an organisation headed by someone like this, who's an activist, is informing our child gender clinics here in Australia. WPATH is referenced on the Royal Melbourne Children's Hospital website.
Yeah, correct. That's exactly right. And it's deceptive and lies, which the whole industry is based on deception and lies. And this is just another aspect to it, because they know that if families and children were exposed to the truth, exposed to the reality of what detransitioners and desisters are facing, if they were exposed to the activism that was going on behind the scenes, they would walk away. They would contact their politicians. They would take measures to protect and safeguard their children. But they're sold these lies. They're manipulated with the expressions. I think you and I talked about it last week, you know, that it's better to have a live son than a dead daughter. It's just a lie. It's manipulative. It's not based on any truth. So parents are scared. You know, they've got this confused child. Of course, every parent wants to help their child find health and healing and wholeness in their life. But this is not the way, and here's more evidence to prove that it's not the way.
What do you think it will take for Australian politicians and leaders to speak up about this, for the media to actually do some investigation of this. You know, as we're going to the air right now, the only Australian media to cover this is Bernard Lane, who used to work at The Australian but now publishes on Substack. But there's been a complete media blackout in Australia of this scandal, even though it's got extensive coverage in the New York Post and other media overseas.
Look, it's really infuriating, Lyle, and I can't understand particularly why the Australian or the Sky News and others are so slow to report on these things, if they will do so at all. It's irrefutable, the evidence that's there. It's newsworthy. It's something that every Australian should be informed about. I don't know what it will take. I suspect it will be things like legal actions, lawsuits of people, you know, in the next 5 to 10 years realising that they were hoodwinked, they were deceived by the medical profession, and that they have been irreversibly, catastrophically harmed. And we will see a rise in court cases, and only then, I think, will we see that, unless, you know, there's a couple of brave politicians, Lyle, we've referenced them before, who are highlighting these issues. We hope that they continue to do that, but I don't know what it's going to take, and it's really frustrating that so many children are being harmed in the process.
It's an absolute scandal, and we really need the likes of Peter Dutton to step up and to elevate this. It's great that the Alex Antichs and the Matt Canavans and the Malcolm Roberts and others do a great job highlighting these things, but we need the leaders to speak. Also, viewers will be pleased to know next week on the program I'll have Professor John Whitehall. He's going to spend the next few days reading through the 200-odd pages that have been leaked from WPATH. He's a leading paediatrician at the University of Western Sydney, and we'll unpack that a bit more on next week's show. Kirralie, in the meantime, a football league, that's a soccer league in the United Kingdom, may be shut down because there is opposition to a male playing in it. Now, we're just hearing, this is just happening all the time. This is just yet another crazy example of girls being bullied out of their sport.
Oh, look, it's incredible. And in this case, yes, it's a boy who wants to play in a female league. I don't think he's identifying as trans, but either way, he's male. And the league, instead of saying no to that boy and finding a mixed competition or a male competition he can play in, are threatening to shut down the entire female competition because the girls don't want to play with a guy. Like, it's just absolutely mind-boggling that they would even go down this course. I know that Football Australia and Football New South Wales have similar policies, that they won't tolerate opposition to their transgender policies. I've had so many complaints. Several competitions began last weekend, Lyle, and there were numerous males playing in female competitions. People have been sending me photos, videos,
here in Australia,
testimony.
This is here in
Australia right now, last weekend. You know, and they're really desperate to find a way forward in this, to protect their daughters, to protect their girls who, you know, risk great injury, humiliation. And it's just plain and simple. Males are not female. Like, we shouldn't have to prove anything about testosterone levels or anything else. Males are not female, and female sports should be for females only. There are plenty of other options where these trans-identified males can play. They just need to get out of women's sport.
They absolutely do. And look, last night I had the privilege of hearing Constantine Kissin speak about this whole woke agenda, and of course the transgender LGBTQI plus political activism is just one part of identity woke politics. But he said this is the enemy that must be destroyed. And they're pretty strong words, but he's absolutely right, isn't he?
Yes, well, like, if we accept this lie, the most fundamental, basic lie in all of humanity, you know, there is only male and female. If we accept that males and females can change sex, then we're going to accept every other lie that's presented to us, and it's going to be complete and utter chaos and disruption and devastation, quite frankly, to family, to individuals, and to our society. And so we have to stand up for the truth, for reality, for evidence-based science, because this could have and is having catastrophic effects on so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. We shouldn't have to be here week in, week out talking about this. Kirralie, tomorrow, Friday, March 8th, some of you might be watching this on the Friday, is International Women's Day. Now, this has become very problematic because most of the people, a lot of people from the left who celebrate this can't even tell us what a woman is.
That's exactly right. There's not one minister for women in this country who can tell us what a woman is. Most premiers and leaders can't do it. You know, I want to use this as an example of just the irony here, Lyle. So the Queensland state government passed self-identification laws not long ago where they're saying that any man who says he's a woman is a woman. And this week, Stephen Miles, the Premier, has been lighting up Parliament House in purple and making claims about, the protections for women, and a new bill passed about coercive control. And if there's it's just, he cannot see the irony that there is coercive control going on, forcing us into the lie that a man can be a woman. And so, I say to him and every other minister for women in this country, if you can't define the word woman, you cannot protect or promote women. So, it's about time. You look ridiculous. You're making utter clowns of yourselves. You're making a mockery of women. It is time to stand up and actually protect women. On my website this week, Lyle, you can find a lot of events that are happening around the country for International Women's Day. And I just encourage people to get out there, stand out there in a group with signs, go and talk to the local members who will be at these events, ask them the questions, and don't relent, because this is too important for every single Australian, and especially our daughters.
Absolutely. Go to the Binary blog, find out where those events are. This is a time where we all need to show courage. Kirralie, you mentioned Stephen Miles. He apologised to the Queensland Parliament for lying about a text message that he sent, that he said he didn't send. If he really cared about the truth, he would apologise to the Parliament and the public for lying about women's gender. Kirralie, thanks so much for your time. Look forward to chatting with you again next week.
Always a pleasure, Lyle. Thanks for having me.